For the last 2 years or so, I have been working with the Smithy language. I have enjoyed every minute of it, and I want you to have all the information you need to make the best out of this tool. So here's why I'm making this series about Smithy and Smithy 4S on my YouTube channel for free. Let's talk about what Smithy is first, and then I'll talk about how it can be used. Smithy is a language meant to solve the many problems of designing, implementing, and maintaining APIs in a polyglot setting. It is language agnostic and protocol agnostic. It was made by AWS and is used, among others, to generate SDKs for a variety of programming languages. Because it's language agnostic, it can be used to build APIs in any general purpose programming language. Because it's protocol agnostic, it doesn't require any specific transport or serialization mechanism, and it doesn't even constrain you to the request-response method of RPC. It is a small language made of a very limited set of features and primitives, but with many ways to extend it. And that actually makes it very good for collaboration because it's easy to get started and easy to read without any special tooling. Finally, it is declarative, so anything you write can be read by a computer program and interpreted or translated into something else. And the declarative nature of it means that these translations can be precise and correct. Now let's talk about the steps that you need to take to use Smithy. You start designing your API by defining a set of operations that it will implement. These operations all have inputs and outputs, and you have to specify what types the inputs and the outputs have. You don't start by considering the details of where a particular input or output parameter will appear in the request. For example, in HTTP you don't really think about, is this going to be a query parameter, is this going to be part of the body, or is this going to be a parameter in the path? You just start with, I want this string and that integer, and they will be somewhere in the request, but you don't really care where. Once you have your input and output, you have an operation, you give it a name, and then you create more of such operations, and then you group them into a service. A service also has a name, and it corresponds roughly to a single application, or a single domain, or a single resource. There's really no one true way to do it, and it is very valid to have more than one service implemented in a single application, but it's a good start to just have one service for the entire app. Now, once you have a service, you might want to get a client or server for it, but just having these types and these operations is not enough. We haven't yet defined the meaning of our operations, the semantics, or basically the protocol that we are going to use to execute these calls. So that is exactly what you have to do now. You need to specify which protocols, in the Smithy sense of it, your service is going to support or implement. And such protocols usually define both the transfer mechanism and the serialization mechanism. For example, there is REST-JSON 1 made by AWS, which uses RESTful HTTP operations, and the bodies are serialized as JSON. And there are other protocols. Some of them are made by AWS and they are documented because some of the AWS services use these protocols. Then there are some protocols provided by other libraries like Smithy 4S. And you can also build your own protocol if you need something custom that doesn't fit into the behavior of the existing protocols. Once you have a protocol attached to your service definition, you need to get yourself an interpreter. The interpreter is something that is aware of the protocol semantics and can take any service definition that conforms to this protocol and transform it into something that runs with that protocol. In the case of, let's say, the simple REST-JSON protocol provided by Smithy 4S, you get an interpreter that gives you an HTTP4S based client or HTTP4S routes for your service. You can also get documentation with a Swagger UI page. That's also sort of an interpreter because it still has to be aware of the protocol details, like how are things encoded into your JSON bodies. And let me say this again, every protocol for anything that might be the output of such interpretation needs a separate interpreter. If you have a XML-based protocol and a JSON-based protocol, if you want to have an HTTP client for those, you still need interpreters that are aware of these differences. To sum up, to use Smithy in your application, you need a service definition, a protocol, and an interpreter for that protocol. This may seem like a lot of work, especially if you're going to implement your own protocol. For example, for compatibility reasons, like you need to support an existing set of APIs, or because you're going to enforce some constraints on the APIs on the services that are not enforced by existing protocols. Like if you're a huge organization, you might want to ensure that everyone does versioning in the same way, or that everyone uses the same union encoding or a timestamp format. But the silver lining is that you only have to implement an interpreter once per programming language per protocol. The alternative which is what you get when you don't have Smithy or something similar, is that you basically write an interpreter for every service separately, because you just handwrite the HTTP bindings. So here's the plan. Together with this video, I'm uploading the first batch of videos, which will tell you how to write a Smithy spec and how to use Smithy 4S to get a server and then a client for it. And this is just the start. I will dive deeper into how to use Smithy and Smithy 4S, both from the user perspective, which is only when you write services and use them with existing protocols, and also from the developer perspective, which is when you create new protocols or tools based on Smithy and Smithy 4S. I'm planning to publish these videos in batches every month or 2 months. You will get a batch of videos, and I expect there to be around 20, 25 10-minute long videos. Some of them will be a little bit shorter, some of them will be a little bit longer. As always, I'm open to any kind of questions and suggestions for future episodes. Just feel free to get in touch via comments or DM me on Twitter, and I'll try to help as much as I can. If you want to learn more about why you should care about Smithy, you can check out the talk I gave this year on the Scholar conference. There should be a link somewhere around here. And this is it. I'll see you in the next video.